Chop, the original Guillotine League podcast. Everything you need to know to avoid the chopping block. Chop is brought to you by GuillotineLeagues.com.
Hello, everyone. I'm Matthew Freedman, Matt F. the Oracle, here with you for the Week 14 Tuesday edition of Chop, the Guillotine League podcast. And I'm here with Brian Johnson. As always, we're going to take a look at the 10 most Chop players from Guillotine Leagues, take stock of the rest of season potential, and discuss how we might approach them in those all-important Week 14 FAAB markets. Brian, are you still alive in all of your Guillotine Leagues?
I am. I survived, and I'm in the catbird seat right now, meaning I have the most FAAB. I'm feeling good. We're getting into crunch time here. A lot to talk about. Well, to address kind of from a FAAB perspective. Should I dive into it right now?
Go ahead.
Freedman?
Yeah.
I mean, I was going through Reddit and I saw some stuff catching a little flack about our advice last week. Well, one thing that caught my eye was we were getting some grief for ranking Devin Achan above. First off, appreciate everyone who listens, by the way. Good or bad, what you say on Reddit is awesome to see people discourse around the show. But Devin Achan, we ranked higher than Jonathan Taylor, so we liked him more. I'm doubling down on that take. I don't know how you feel about that. Are you still? I think we're still riding that ship hard, but not the peacock. But no, it's hard to address like a blanket bidding strategy on this show. I'm still saying we stick to the percentage of your FAAB, but again, some people seem to miss the reserve I was talking about, which is like, let's say $50, right? Of FAAB. Like when I was saying 95% of your budget on guys like Achan, Josh Allen, you got to keep that reserve, and you have to look at your league and just at least stay in the mix in terms. Maybe the reserve only needs to be $20 based on how much FAAB is left in your league. You know, I'm in some leagues where people have $0. So again, moving forward, we're going to go with this percentage of your FAAB with leaving I'm going to still say the $50-ish reserve. It's flexible, but going through the duration of the season, because again, chop players are available beyond this week. So, but again, when we talk about players, I'm still going to recommend percentage of your remaining FAAB with leaving that emergency funds of like $50 FAAB. And I think a fair way to grade it, Freeman, I'm going to quit babbling soon, I promise. When we talk about I think we're going to do 13 guys because they're all pretty big name guys. They're either like a pass, a stash rating, or a smash. And the smash, that will be the 90% bidders. But I just wanted to address that. It would be great if we could touch on each anecdotal, bidding scenario here, but it is tough. But again, just to close the loop, thank you to everyone who listens and comments. Do appreciate it. All right, I'm done. Now, is Die Hard a Christmas movie? Let's get into the important stuff.
I don't think we even need to talk about that because, yes, it is a Christmas movie. Unequivocally, it is a Christmas movie.
Yeah, we'll dive into that more later. It's good to know we're both great minds. Great.
I mean, I think a bigger question would be, is Batman 2 a Christmas movie? And I still say it is a Christmas movie.
No doubt.
Okay.
It's not a good Christmas movie or a good movie in general, but
wow.
I had the Batman Returns Genesis game.
Mm-hmm. I think it's a great movie. I need to
watch it again. I mean, it's cinematically incredible. Tim Burton, of course.
Yeah.
It's
I mean, Michelle Pfeiffer in that outfit. It's obviously a great movie for that alone. Okay, so
not arguing that at all.
I will say,
that was pretty important in the the upbringing.
Absolutely. So I will say, I think this is good because you have that like sort of catbird seat where you have all of the FAAB. I'm in the opposite situation, not exactly the opposite situation, but I have on the lower end of FAAB in the leagues that I'm in. But I still feel really good about the teams that I've assembled, but I think we kind of have like complementary perspectives on how to approach it, because you're going to be thinking of, all right, if you have a war chest of FAAB, here's what you do. And I'm thinking of, if I have relatively little FAAB left, here's how I'm approaching these. So I think we have kind of the well-rounded show perspective on the FAAB situation for the players that we're going to be talking about. And then also two things. One, I absolutely still will back the Devon Achane above Jonathan Taylor take. I don't think that's really even that controversial.
No.
I think Achane clearly has the potential for ceiling. We know that. But if you look at the scoring matrix that we have at Fantasy Life, where you can sort of see the breakdown of here are the number of points each guy has scored every week, and you can break it down by half PPR, PPR, etc. And you can sort of see, oh, this was a top 5 fantasy finish, everything like that. Devon Achane, week to week, has had the highest floor of every running back in the NFL in terms of the production that he has given you. And you look at the utilization report we have at Fantasy Life, he's a top 3 guy in terms of the usage that he is getting week to week. So absolutely love Devon Achane. Even though that Dolphins offense has really underperformed, Achane within that offense has been the one constant week to week who has consistently produced. And then I will also say there's the possibility that the Dolphins offense incrementally gets a little bit better. They have some really nice matchups coming along. Achane, absolutely, I stand by Achane above Jonathan Taylor. And then I will also say last week, I like the way that we will talk through these players, where you might have a take, I might have a take, and there's the possibility that I will change your mind or you will change my mind, or we won't change each other's minds, but we kind of have gone through the process of thinking about specific players. And the guy that I am thinking of is Jameson Williams, where this was like the perfect example, and it almost never happens to where it hits right away. But the
Mhm.
thing of Jameson Williams was, okay, he was the second most chopped player from last week. I think it was around like 28% of the leagues. And he was coming off of a 3 target, 0 reception game. And the idea was you don't want to bid a lot on him, but maybe you can get him at a slight discount. You bid just a little bit because you want to see how things develop with Dan Campbell calling plays. And the 3 weeks before that, he had been awesome. And then there was the little takeaway of like, and then plus, probably doesn't matter, but there's the possibility that he gives you like some Amon-Ra St. Brown insurance. And like, bam, it hit immediately.
Yeah.
Take. And we don't know how long St. Brown is going to be out. And, I'm going to give a little teaser on this. We will talk about him more, but, like there's, I think, a lot of value in having the conversations about these players and going back and forth and thinking about the different ways of approaching them.
Yeah, no doubt. Yeah, last week when James and JMO came up, I was like, I'm out, goose egg, spike week player. And you're like, hey, well, let's just, and lo and behold, something happens to Sun God. And it did, unfortunately. Does that bring Tom Kennedy into play too? Tom Kennedy, but we won't go there yet. One thing I want to just add to your first point, or what you're first talking about there was, if you don't have a ton of fab, this goes for everyone. Even if you have a lot of fab and you're not really thinking you're wanting to bid the necessary amount to win a player, or you don't have enough funds where you're like, I'm not going to win this guy. Always put a bid in, because you never know who will slip through the cracks. Because almost everyone in your league might have that, same thought, like, I'm not going to win this guy. I'm not going to put a bid on him. And then the one guy who has all the fab, for whatever reason, he doesn't make a bid. He's not interested. So always throw a slip through the cracks bid out there, because you never know who you could get for a few bucks. Just take the time to do it. I've gotten guys for a few bucks slip through the crack bid that I was shocked to have acquired. So you never know what could happen. So go the extra effort and just throw those bids out there. They may seem like a waste of time, but lightning does strike.
Absolutely. And I will say that I remember having other conversations, just kind of thinking about guillotine leagues, like kind of learning more about it, and the strategy of it. And that second wave of free agency, I think, is also a big point where lots of guys can go for cheaper than they should, where, like everyone's going to be focused on like the big name guys who get chopped that week. But, that second wave, there, because maybe someone doesn't get picked up right away for whatever reason. And then people might not just look at waivers for that second round, and you can get someone for like $1, $2 who really should not have been available for that cheap. So yeah, lots of ways to approach this, and man, it is such a fascinating time of year for us to be thinking about, like, oh my goodness, this player who would never be on waivers in another league is available in Guillotine Leagues. So all right, we're normally doing 10, but for some reason 13 guys got put on the sheet. And Brian, you had talked about sort of the pass, stash, or smash perspective. Is that how you're going to be evaluating all of these guys?
Yeah, I'll throw that kind of grade on each one,
Okay.
and also the percentage of
Yep.
what of your
Yep.
fab I think you should bid. And I'll one last thing before we get into the guys. I'll say strategically going into week 14, there are no buys in week 13. Last week of buys, there's some heavy hitters on buy. Off top of my head, Christian McCaffrey, one for sure. Drake May, quarterback. So if you're free of those bye weeks, that's great, of course. Maybe a little more incentive to not, because every week that you can save money, crucial, of course. So, and this is a week where, take a look at your like one guy might have have been riding Travion, McCaffrey, George Kittle. So take a good look at the other rosters in your league. It's not going to take a lot of time. There's only 5 left. So if you think you could just not come in last, try to conserve fab this week if you're not hit by any of the buys than your
Yeah.
big hitters.
Yeah, absolutely. I have Christian McCaffrey in at least one Guillotine League. So
He will be missed. He will be
yeah,
missed.
so that's a situation where it's like, hey, just hope I get through this week.
Mhm.
All right, so we are going to get into the what you bid in segment, brought to you by our friends at Pristine Auction. By the way, Pristine Auction, you can find a lot of things there, quote unquote, items of Americana. And our producer extraordinaire, Matt Lamarca, has put together something, looked at Pristine Auction, found some items, quote unquote, historical items that he thought we might be interested in. All right. And he's showing them on the screen right now for the YouTube viewers. What is this? It's a White House piece of stationery signed January 26, 1998. I'm going to say this again. I
Is this
did
a
not have, yeah,
Monica Lewinsky to Bill Clinton? It's
yeah.
too small for me to read. I'm on my, off my laptop right now. But yeah, what
Yeah,
is this?
so it's signed by Bill Clinton, January 26, 1998. I'm going to say this again. I did not have sexual relations with that woman, Miss Lewinsky. I never told anybody to lie, not a single time, never. These allegations are false. I need to go back to work for the American people. Signed by Bill Clinton. That is a true piece of Americana. What is amazing is that it's actually signed.
At
Signed
the top too,
at
which
the
is
top.
kind of weird. Why is it not in the? But all right, it's legit. The signature's legit coming from Pristine. Man, that's so he only did like one of the. I need a little more. I mean,
What's
we all know the
amazing,
story, but like,
yeah.
yeah, what is up with this doc?
I mean, what is kind of amazing, what the idea of him signing multiple of these,
Well,
but
this
like
must have been his approved. Is this like the approved like
the
press
approved
release?
copy. I don't know.
That seems like that's out of my price range. I would imagine.
Yeah. I mean, I have no idea how this actually ended up just circulating around like the public. It seems like this should be somehow something that is stored in some sort of museum or archive. Some,
Someone saved it.
yeah.
Yeah. Wow. I'll be curious to see how much this goes for.
Yeah. All right. How
Probably
much?
a pretty big wad.
Yeah. I mean, there you go. I would imagine that it is way more than I would want to spend. And what I want to spend is almost nothing on something like that.
No.
All right. But if you are into random
That was like
pieces,
the last. And I was actually joking when I was. Is that like a Bill Clinton monocle? Because all I could see was the letterhead. My screen I'm looking at is pretty small, so I don't
yeah.
have to look at my ugly face too much. But yeah, someone out there is gonna buy that though. That's for sure.
Yeah, I mean, if you are the type of person who's into owning pieces of history like that, I could see how that
Slick
could be a pretty prized possession. All right, let's get into it. The number 13th chopped player Travion Henderson, played Monday Night Football. The return of Ramondre Stevenson last week, week 12, wasn't something that really interfered too much. The return of Ramondre Stevenson 2 weeks ago wasn't something that really interfered with Travion Henderson. However, that was maybe just kind of like a ramp up week. What we saw on Monday Night Football was these guys really splitting the workload. And you would have imagined that even with the Patriots scoring so many points, Henderson, despite splitting the work, still would have been able to produce enough not to get his fantasy investors chopped. That was not the case. And so now the question becomes, Brian, moving forward, how much do we think Travion Henderson is worth? Is he obviously he has explosive potential. He's in a great offense. He is on bye this week, which makes him less attractive, but also probably makes him easier to acquire. But lots of questions about Travion Henderson. The biggest just being what kind of workload we can expect from him moving forward. What are your thoughts on him?
Yeah, so in week 11, no Stevenson at all, and it was a week 10 and 11, and Stevenson looked amazing, basically in a bell cow role. And it's like, well, if he has this kind of usage, he's an end game player. And then week 12, as you said last week, Stevenson comes back but doesn't see the field much, and they're like, oh, it's probably because you know Henderson, is amazing, so he's our guy, and Stevens just a backup now. But again, Monday night, Stevenson 60% of the snaps, Henderson only 50%. They're on the field together, a fair amount. But I think you look at it this way too, where like you said, it could have been a ramp up last week for Stevenson, and now they're back to a split workload. But the Patriots ran it up pretty quick on the Giants on Monday night, so maybe they didn't want to subject Henderson to unnecessary usage. But even if that's the case, he's not an end game player now, Henderson, with Stevenson healthy. And as you mentioned, they're on bye, so he's not a pass. He's a stash now, because if something were to happen to Henderson, or if it's a more competitive game from the jump, and maybe they just do ride Henderson more than a 50-50 split like we've seen, then Henderson is worth the stash, but he's certainly not a smash bid. So I'm only going to bid, again, going into the buy, like 20% of my fab, and probably not even that much. I'll say 10 to 15, because right now he's just he's not an end gamer as of right now, and useless this week on buy.
Yeah. I'm not going to put it in terms of percentage of my fab, because that percentage is negligible. I would just say if I'm bidding on him, it's $1. It's maybe even a $0 bid.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
At 10%, it's more like $10 regardless at most.
Yeah.
But yeah, it depends on how much fab you have, but it's not. It shouldn't be more than $10.
Yeah. As someone who is now in a sort of fab, I wouldn't say fab desperate situation, but like a fab conserving situation, I'm bidding almost nothing on Travion Henderson. Another running back here, Rico Dowdle, also cut in 17% of leagues. In a similar situation where, for a while he was dominating as the number one back for the Panthers. And then this past week, we saw Chuba Hubbard reemerge seemingly as the number one back for the Panthers. And even if Chuba isn't the established number one back for the Panthers, it now seems like a pretty firm timeshare once again. And even if it isn't a firm timeshare, we just kind of don't know week to week how it's going to go for Rico Dowdle or for Chuba Hubbard. Brian, how are you approaching Rico Dowdle after what was a disappointing game for him, but a really encouraging game for the Panthers in general, getting the win in Carolina over the Rams?
Yeah, no doubt, huge win for Carolina. Keep pounding, hometown Panthers. But it's basically it's just like ditto, right? Ditto to what we just said about Henderson. Then you corrected me on at the end that I was a little too high, but almost an identical situation. A guy who was bell cow was outsnapped, outtouched by his backup, Chuba Hubbard in this case, also going into a bye week. The Panthers are like the Patriots, so it's pretty much the same bidding advice, like $10 at most. I think Chuba has a better chance to maintain the majority of the touches, even though Hubbard looked pretty good on Sunday. Like his snaps, he benefited on, he was in there for the right plays. Chuba was. It seemed like Rico had to do a lot of the dirty work. But again, bye week, then at New Orleans week 15. That's promising, but Tampa Bay, Seattle week 16 and 17. Not great matchups on paper. So not an end gamer, kind of more of a stash. Again, just kind of in that Henderson range. I'll say $10 max based on like your fab and the remaining fab in your league.
Yeah. If we're thinking between Henderson and Dowdle, I'm more on Henderson than I am on Dowdle.
Yeah, the PPR angle,
Yeah.
little and
Yeah.
better
So
team in general.
exactly. So more on Henderson than on Dowdle, but agree with the perspective. Neither guy is an end game player. And if I'm bidding something on either one, it's almost nothing. All right. The next guy, the number 11 player, still 17% cut rate, just like Dowdle, just like Henderson. Michael Pittman, wide receiver for the Colts. We've talked, I believe, about Pittman before, where I don't think he's really even the number one receiver on his team anymore. At least it's not clear cut. Alec Pierce is doing great work. You also have Josh Downs you have to compete with, who's a really reliable slot guy. And then of course you have Tyler Warren as a tight end. The ball just gets spread around that offense. It's more of a run heavy offense anyway. And then it isn't as prolific of an offense now as it was to start the year. Michael Pittman, 17% chop rate this past week. What are you looking at for him in the market?
Yeah, you pretty much touched on all of it. Pittman, a guy we talked about on the Thursday show, Wednesday last week, day before Thanksgiving, to fade him, despite being a top 12 wide receiver overall, statistically. Looks like a lot of people didn't. They put him in their lineup, unfortunately. And yeah, like you said, Alec Pierce, despite Pittman being top 12 among all wide receivers from a fantasy points per game perspective, looks like the number one wide receiver, and Tyler Warren is the best pass catcher on the whole team. So yeah, Pittman buy in the rear view, but at Jacksonville, at Seattle next to, not great. I mean, he might be flex worthy. This is just depending on, like, maybe you're just blasted by the bye weeks this week. You got Tedero and McMillan and Kittle and McCaffrey and who else is on bye. But anyway, he's like worth a buck if you're desperate, but you probably don't need to even put that on him. But
Yeah.
he's worth rostering. I mean, at Jacksonville this week, it's all right, but not a smash spot.
Yeah.
But
This
dollar at most.
yeah,
The end.
we are at the point in the season where it reminds me of something that is attributed to Warren Buffett. I don't know if he actually said this or did this, but it makes me think of the story that is kind of attributed to him, where he met this guy once who sort of asked him, "Hey, how can I have success like you?" And so Warren Buffett told him, "Make a list of all of the things you want to do." Right. And then the guy did it and he said, okay, order the list, from 1 to, like 20 or, 50, however many things are on there, rank the list and then put a line under number 5 and don't do anything that you have on the list that's like 6 through 100. Don't do any of those until you've accomplished 1 through 5. And that is how I'm looking at so many of the players now available in guillotine leagues, where I don't want to spend $1 on a guy who's not in my top 5. Like there are only so many in-game players who are true difference makers. And then so many other guys who are fine and who would have been very serviceable starters for us just 3-4 weeks ago. But now, like, they're almost death to your team because you cannot win a championship if you are investing money in them. And so I look at Michael Pittman to where it's like, yeah, earlier in the year, you would have loved to have had him on your Guillotine League team. And now you just probably don't even want him on your roster. You're hoping to have that spot available for someone who has a much greater chance of making an impact at the end of the season. So I look at Pittman as a guy who's like, he's a fine player, but he's not 1 through 5 for me. And I'm just crossing him off and thinking like he's someone that it would actually be bad for me to spend any type of fab on.
Yeah, pretty much in full agreement. Yeah, it's a break glass in case of emergency scenario if you're bidding even $1 on Pittman. Or
Yeah.
he really just zero in. He streamable if you need him, but yeah, he's not an end game player. Even if something were to happen to, hopefully not, like a Pierce or let's not even bring that out into discussion.
Yeah. So a strong pass for me. All right. So the number 10 player chopped this past week. Now we are getting into someone who's intriguing to me. Jalen Waddle, wide receiver for the Dolphins, chopped in 18% of leagues. He's going against the Jets this week. So I think a strong matchup there. I historically don't like the Dolphins passing game outside of Miami. Like Tua Tagovailoa has pretty marked splits in terms of how he performs at home versus on the road. It could be cold in New York, but I mean, the Jets pass defense is number 32 in dropback DVOA. I mean, they traded away Sauce Gardner, traded away Michael Carter, slot cornerback Jarvis Brownlee is out with a hip. They could also be without free safety Tony Adams. It's just like a bad situation in that secondary. And then Jalen Waddle has been great in the post Tyreek era. And so I'm looking at Jalen Waddle, and I think he might be, if he's not in game, he's close to it. Or like he maybe has the potential to like develop into in game by the time I'm at week 17. So I think he's an interesting bid candidate. How are you looking at him?
Yeah, he's very interesting, and yeah, not a dunk end game candidate, but man, if you have Devin Achan, you don't want Waddle. He's the only Dolphin you need. So just take a break. Still listen. This might be entertaining, but so Achan or Waddle would be an interesting pivot. Well, not really a pivot, but if you don't have Achan, if Achan doesn't have a good game, good chance Waddle does. And in weeks 16 and 17 versus Cincinnati and the Bucks in Miami, those are plus matchups. So yeah, he could be a sneaky flex worthy end game player. And like you said, the matchup at the Jets this week and at Pittsburgh in week 15, a good matchup on paper. It could be some bad weather, but we won't worry about that now. So yeah, basically very interesting guy. Not a smash grade player though. Definitely stash and streams, stash start. So he's kind of falling in no man's land between like the serious bid and $1 bid. I say he is worth. It's not saying you should do this, but he's worth probably 50% of your fab, I would say. Again, leaving that reserve funds of at least $50, but he's got end game potential and good matchups and still good usage. It wasn't a great game against the Saints. That's why he's on the list, but wasn't the best game script for Waddle. So I'll say 50% of fab to close the loop there.
Yeah. You look at the matchups: Jets, Steelers, Bengals, Buccaneers. That's what we have left. All of those are plus matchups. And you look at what Waddle has done in his time without Tyreek Hill. So since week 5, he's been pacing for, if you kind of extrapolated it out over a 17 game season, he's been pacing for almost 1,250 yards receiving. Like if he's not like a real number one receiver, he's very close to it. And 10.3 yards per target, he's been playing with really good efficiency. So I'm intrigued. I'm probably not doing like the full like, oh hey, he's a top 3, top 5 wide receiver type of bid, but I'm closer to smash than I am to stash. Like I am certainly putting a near aggressive type of bid on him. So yes, I wouldn't say like from the fab hungry perspective, I'm deploying the rest of it on him, but I'm deploying enough to where if, for whatever reason he starts to slip through the cracks, I might have a shot at getting him.
Yeah, he's a great slip through the crack bid. Like regardless, like $5 on Waddle. But yeah, he is worth more. But not saying again, I don't need to spend it. And while we're just on the Dolphins, real quick, and these good matchups, they're great for the tight end. Darren Waller, go out and grab him for 0. Just if he's out there, Waller's worth a $0 bid.
Yeah. Yes, agree. All right. The next guy on the list, the number 9 cut player from last week. And it's not even exaggeration. We talk about this guy literally every week. Lamar Jackson cut in 20% of leagues. Like this dude is the executioner. Like he has gotten, if you have started him over the past month, likelier than not, he has gotten you chopped. I know like 2 weeks ago, it was like the Lamar's an in-game quarterback, but you don't have to bid on him yet. And then last week we had the conversation of, is Lamar an in-game quarterback? And then I'm just going to say right now, Lamar Jackson is not an in-game quarterback. Like based on the way that he has been playing, or the way, let me rephrase this. Yeah, maybe it's a combination of the way he has been playing and the way that the Ravens have deployed him. Because if he's not running at the previous Lamar Jackson type of clip, and the offense just seems to be kind of misfiring. There are injuries on the offensive line. It's just like there's something that is still a little bit off about this offense. And if Lamar Jackson isn't able to will the offense to greatness through his rushing ability, then he's not, in my opinion, a top 5 quarterback. Now, he's got the matchup against the Steelers and matchup against the Bengals coming up. Those are objectively good matchups. Even so, I'm not spending. I am not spending on Lamar Jackson. I'm just going to say I do not see him right now in this current iteration of Jackson. I do not see him as an in-game quarterback.
Yeah, I don't either. And in his defense, his stat line should have been a little better. Thanksgiving, Isaiah likely unnecessarily kind of reaches the ball out at the goal line when he could have just fell into the end zone, hugging the ball like a baby. That would have helped Lamar's stat line a little more. But yeah, definitely not an end game player. I will go out and try to get him for $0 if I'm a Drake May manager and I need a quarterback. But there might be better options out there. But like you said, the matchup against Pittsburgh decent enough. Cincinnati interesting next week, but he's not a smash. He's a stash. And again, there's probably he'd just be in the list of like $0 bids I'd be throwing at quarterbacks this week if I was looking to stream one or stash one. Even if I wasn't looking to stream a quarterback, I'd throw $0 just to stash because I'm still holding out some hope. But like you said, I'm with you. You can't invest $1 of FAAB into Lamar right now. It's sad, but that's where we're at.
Okay, and it's interesting. So you are more of like the $0 stash, and I'm like a $0 pass. Like, sure, like I'll bid, but like if I got him, I'd be like, all right.
Well, if you don't want him on roster, don't bid the $0. Bid the $0 on someone else. But yeah. I'd say he's at least rosterable. But even like, yeah, he's not even a like, oh, I can go get Lamar to stream this week. That you got to show some trepidation, sadly, because like you said, he's not running, and that's that's everything.
All right, someone else who is not running, Matthew Stafford, who is cut in 28% of Guillotine Leagues this past week as the number 8 shot player. Easy. No, did I say 28%? 21% of leagues is what he was cut in this past week. Not in game very clearly for me. Stafford is playing great, but he offers absolutely nothing as a runner. And the passing efficiency, I'm not saying, that comes and goes, but it's very hard for a pocket passer at this time of the year to be worthy of a Guillotine League start. So for me, Matthew Stafford, as great as he is playing in reality, in fantasy, he's a pass.
I'm with you for the most part. He's not an end game. I don't know if it depends on your quarterback situation. If you need a quarterback this week at Arizona, I like, and then in Detroit next week indoors at Seattle, not great week 16, but not an end game quarterback, like you said, and he's not mobile. But I would bid $1 on Stafford if I was looking for a quarterback this week, and then just maybe I would start him next week because he still has the best wide receiver duo in the league. Fumbled at the end. We don't have to get into last week's game, but yeah, he's worth $1 if you are looking to stream this week. But that's still like stash level, basically. So yeah, that's where we're at with Stafford.
All right,
hopefully you went out and got Josh Allen last week, which was another thing that getting grief on Reddit that said was being too aggressive. I was like, well, that's going to be your chance to get him, and that looks to be the case. That is the guy you want at quarterback. Just
All
pray he
right.
becomes available if he's not and you're alive to get him.
Yeah. So thinking about Stafford versus Jackson, would you rather have Jackson? Let's just say straight up, which of these guys would you rather have? I'm assuming it's Jackson, but that's maybe not a safe assumption to make anymore.
Like if I had to have and basically trust to start at least this week and next week, it's still Stafford all day.
Yeah.
At Arizona, yeah, you still got Puka
Yeah. I think
and
that's the
Adams.
case. He's got their hashtag revenge game in Detroit against the Lions in a
Oh
couple of
yeah,
weeks.
that's obvious.
Um, yeah, I think I would rather have Stafford. And the thing is, you can probably get Stafford for cheaper. Um, just because of the kind of name brand difference between Lamar Jackson and Stafford. So, yeah, I would rather have Stafford, but I still kind of view neither of these guys as someone I probably want to spend anything on. All right, the number 7 chop player that we have, Jahmyr Gibbs, chopped in 21% of leagues this past week. Um, I will just sort of say yes, give me 100%. This is one of the few. He's in the 1 through 5 list for me. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Like if he's available, I'm spending as much as I think I reasonably can while still keeping like a couple pennies left in reserve because I do think Jahmyr Gibbs is like one of the like 4 or 5 in-game running backs. And just specifically what he has done since head coach Dan Campbell took over play calling. 668 yards and 6 touchdowns on 62 carries, 28 targets, a 94 utilization score, in those 4 games, with Dan Campbell as the head coach. Sorry, as the play caller. Amon-Ra St. Brown could be out this week. Khalif Raymond could be out. Sam Laporta is definitely out. Brock Wright could be out. So you could just have so much work being funneled to Jahmyr Gibbs. And then you have the Lions at home as significant favorites, at home, the best home field advantage in the league over the past 5 years. And with quarterback Jared Goff, they are 27-15-1 against the spread when playing in Detroit. That Cowboys defense is not as vulnerable this week as it has been in the past
Yeah.
to start this season, with the addition of Queen and Williams,
Mhm.
other people that they've gotten in. But man, Jahmyr Gibbs this week, next week, all the weeks, I want him on my team, and I'm willing to pay.
Yeah, me too. He actually I had him and McCaffrey as my top 2 running backs last week. I am gonna say Achan is he's leapfrogged Gibbs just a little bit. I got CMC and Achan as my, even though CMC is on bye this week, but outside of that. But anyway, back to Gibbs. Yeah, people are gonna look at the touchdowns from Montgomery and clearly why Gibbs is on this list and be concerned that, oh no, it's gonna be more of a split. But Gibbs still played 73% of the snaps to Montgomery's 35% on Thanksgiving. So the workload isn't an issue. I still think it's going to be somewhat of that split. Monty is a threat at the goal line, unfortunately, but he's not the goal line back. Gibbs gets plenty of goal line usage. So yeah, basically still an end game player. Worth if he's got that value, 90% of your FAAB to get to that and leave your reserve. But I say you need to spend it, but he certainly has that value. And like you said, though, tougher matchup now against the Cowboys with Quinn and Williams. Avoid like the overall ranking you see against the run when it comes to the Cowboys, because that has changed. But he'll be again, also that you mentioned with Sun God likely to miss time. He'll be very active in the pass game, PPR super bonus. So yeah, 90%er for Gibbs, a smash grade.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolute smash. And what else is a smash for me is Xfinity. If you call yourself a sports fan, you have to have Xfinity. All the games all in one place. They have the Sports Zone where you can get every pro football game and over 1,000 college games with highlights and alerts all in one place. There's the multi-view where you can be in up to 4 stadiums at once. There's the Xfinity fan view with live scores, odds and stats all in one place, personalized to you. And of course, there's the stunning Xfinity Enhanced 4K and the voice remote, which makes watching football literally as easy as saying football. I want to watch a football game on Xfinity right now. Learn more at xfinity.com. Restrictions apply. New residential customers only. Taxes and fees extra and subject to change. All right. The next guy. Let me see what the number is. We are now at number 6. The number 6 most chopped player, Travis Etienne, this past week, cut in 22% of leagues. I view him as a bridge running back. I don't really want to bid much, if anything. Let me rephrase that. I'm bidding nothing. I'm bidding nothing on Travis Etienne. I just talked myself into that perspective, but he's not a top 5 guy for me. I don't want to bid on him, but what are your thoughts?
Yeah, Byshell Tootin is they're ramping him up too much. Tootin was among the running backs, the only one to see any snaps inside the 5 last week. It was a blowout against the Titans, but yeah, ETN doesn't score. Not an end game player. Maybe you need him as a streamer this week, but yeah, he's worth $0. It's up to you to decide if you want to go out and get him. At Colts this week, or home against the Colts this week, it's a fair matchup. He's startable, but only worth $0.
Yeah. All right. Next on the list, Zay Flowers, the 5th most chopped player from this past week, chopped in 23% of leagues. I have one word. Nah.
Nay.
Yeah.
Nay Flowers.
Yep.
Next.
All
Yeah,
right.
I don't even want to.
Yeah.
I really don't want any rave. Like, you still want Derrick Henry on roster, and you'll start. But Derrick Henry to me is not an end game. But he's the only Raven worth talking about right now. You can't even trust Mark Andrews, who's probably top 3 among tight ends in touchdowns with Isaiah. Yeah, Ravens brutal. Let's move.
Yeah. Well, the brutality continues because next on the list is Justin Jefferson. The number 4 chopped player from last week, chopped in 23% of leagues. I mean, on the one hand, the dude's a Hall of Famer and he's still in his physical prime. On the other hand, no, just no. He has, I mean, who does he has Max Brosmer, and there were people who thought, you know what, this actually might be an upgrade from JJ McCarthy, and it was a Nathan Peterman-esque downgrade. I expect JJ McCarthy to return from concussion protocol this week. But man, I mean, McCarthy isn't great either. And we all know this. I mean, with McCarthy as the quarterback in this offense, the entire system has just been bogged down to where you can't expect anything out of any of the pass catchers. I mean, Justin Jefferson, he's getting the Larry Fitzgerald, 2005 to 2008 treatment, or whatever the time frame was where Fitzgerald was just in the wilderness with no quarterback throwing to him. I feel like that's what Justin Jefferson is getting right now. I mean, maybe $1, maybe, but probably not.
Yeah, can't be trusted as an end game player. Another guy on Wednesday we said to fade, and I didn't. You have to know. You don't have to know any ball to know that you shouldn't have played Justin Jefferson last week at Seattle. But yeah, he's definitely not a smash. It's sad to say. You used to be licking your chops when you would see JJ on the waiver wire, but to the other JJ's quarterback, yeah, he'll start. But the matchup at home against Washington this week, who's allowed the 5th most, they're top 5 in the most yards, catches, touchdowns allowed to wide receivers. So the matchup is right. And then they just have to just pepper him with targets, right? I mean, I'll bid a little more than $1. I'll say he's worth $20, up to 20, depending on how needy you are for a flex level player. But he's not even he's not a wide receiver 2 in Guillotine Leagues where, basically there's 10 starting wide receivers. He's not one of those, but with 20 flex players starting, I'll bid 10 to 20, up to 20. Because I believe the schedule is somewhat favorable beyond this week.
Yes.
Right?
The schedule is
at
favorable.
Dallas, week 15, at New York versus Detroit week. Yeah. So he's a stash. He is not a smash. He's a high end stash. $10 to $20.
Man, here's the thing that scares me. The schedule is favorable enough, and Justin Jefferson is good enough that you can talk yourself into starting him, and that could get you chopped. You know what I mean? Like he feels too dangerous because he is Justin Jefferson. And you're right, the schedule: Commanders, Cowboys, Giants, Lions. That is a favorable schedule, but I cannot trust Justin Jefferson in any capacity based on what we've seen. I mean, okay, here's a question. Let's say JJ McCarthy returns this week and you get Justin Jefferson for, I don't know, $5, $10, whatever it is, a relatively low amount. And he sits on your bench for 3 weeks. And JJ McCarthy progressively gets better over these next 3 games. And you make it to the championship. Week 17, you, one other team left, JJ McCarthy at home playing the Lions, who have increasingly become susceptible to the passing attack. In that scenario, let's say JJ McCarthy, he hasn't passed for 300 yards, but he's gotten better to where he's like consistently around like 225, right? And at that point, are you still trusting? Are you thinking, oh man, week 17, it's all on the line, I'm starting Justin Jefferson?
Well, if I'm alive in week 17, we're probably not thinking about Justin Jefferson at all. Like you said, he's probably just been sitting on your bench. But I think there is a chance that McCarthy's going to get elite, but just can be competent. And they're going for too many big plays. I don't know. Just simplify the playbook and just target Jefferson. If he starts seeing 9, 10, 11 targets over the next 2 or 3 weeks, then he might be flex worthy in week 17, but there just has to be some kind of level of competency shown from McCarthy that we have not seen yet. So yeah, he's a dicey proposition, but it's low risk with, I won't say he even has a high reward this year, but low risk, some reward potential.
Yeah. It's so intriguing because, yeah, I mean, I feel like he is someone that you should put probably a very small bid on, but I still don't imagine a world where I ever feel comfortable starting him for the next month in guillotine leagues.
Well, you don't have to worry about Adam Thielen anymore taking targets. Forgot he was even on the team.
Yes. Good point.
I see him wandering around here in Charlotte, just like peeking in, looking around. Like, anyone remember me around here? He was so happy to leave.
I mean,
what are you up to now, Adam? Where are you at?
Wow. All right. The number 3 chop player from this past week, Saquon Barkley, 27%.
Another common occurrence on the show.
Yeah.
Saquon.
I mean, yeah, he's back. Yeah, he has gotten more heads chopped than the actual guillotine in Revolution France. I look at Saquon Barkley and then I think about someone that we just talked about a little bit before, Jahmyr Gibbs. And I'm thinking, would I rather have Saquon Barkley for like $5 or Jahmyr Gibbs for, I don't know, $100? Which would I rather have? And I don't know if there's a right answer to that. Where are you on Saquon?
I might pay you $100 of real money just to not have Saquon Barkley on my Guillotine League team. I don't want anything to do with, I mean, I would take Gibbs in that scenario.
Yeah.
10 out of 10 times, even if it left me with $0, I would take my chance. But yeah, Barkley, just brutal. You can just search his name Twitter and there's nothing but bad things statistically, like historically bad for a guy who's getting as many touches as he does. It's unfathomable, like how, but his line is letting him down. I know they're like ranked near the very bottom in terms of yards before contact per rush attempt, but certainly not doing any backwards leapfrogs over anybody this year. That magic is gone. So when it comes to what he's worth, he's not an end gamer. And I've been saying that for over a month because the writing seemed to be on the wall, and it's just getting worse, and it's getting worse for the Eagles in general. So I don't even want to look at the schedule again. I guess I'd roster him, but I'd rather. I think Jefferson offers more upside than Barkley at this point. Justin Jefferson. So I'd come in lower than the 20 cap I put on Jefferson. Say 10 to 15 on Barkley. But I wouldn't be. I don't necessarily want to win that bid.
Yeah, it's prescient that you mentioned Jefferson because I was going to ask. We have these two guys who last year were league winners, like first team all pro type of players. And I'm asking myself, which of these guys is likelier to be an in-game player? Like if there's been some sort of transformation where we get here week 17 and it's like this guy's back. Which one of these guys do we think is likelier to have that kind of short-term, very quick renaissance where it's week 17 and we think, oh man, I can actually put this guy in my starting lineup?
Yeah, it's Jefferson just because of the potential for the receptions. Like if you're an end game running back, you got to be catching passes, and that's why the list is so short. It's McCaffrey, Achane, Gibbs, and man, Jonathan Taylor isn't even in that tier. That's why we graded him below Achane. So and Barkley is not. I doubt he's caught 5 balls in a game this year. Maybe I think he had that one huge game against the Giants, but I mean. Jefferson, even as bad as the quarterbacking is in Minnesota and the coaching, by the way, still has end game potential because he has a better chance to catch 7, 8, 9 passes in a game. Hopefully. We'll see.
I don't know if I disagree, but I just want to sort of think through the case for Barkley here.
All right.
I don't know if I see JJ McCarthy or Max Brosmer, however that ends up splitting out. I don't know if I see either one of them making a significant leap forward in the next month. And I think that is what would need to happen for me to trust Justin Jefferson.
I wish they would give Brosmer one more. No one was going to, at Seattle, he was a sacrificial lamb there. Absolute, now he's seen that. Let him play at home against the Commanders. That's running with ankle weights for a month and you finally take off the ankle weights and anyway. But yeah, dicey.
Yeah.
Dicey scenario.
Yeah.
Vikings.
But so it's thinking about for Justin Jefferson to become, for me, an in-game player, we need to see really big improvement from McCarthy or Brosmer. For Saquon,
I think it's a great litmus test just to close this week. Yeah. If we don't see it this week against the Commanders, then it's over for Minnesota. Everyone.
For the Eagles to become a team that can support Saquon as an in-game player, it's easier for me to imagine because we've seen the Eagles actually do it before. And their offense hasn't been good lately, but it's like Lane Johnson comes back and it's like, oh, all of a sudden the offensive line doesn't suck as much anymore. Maybe there's a little bit of a change of play caller and it's like, okay, these guys go from scoring 21 points a game to 27 points a game. It's like, I can kind of imagine it a little bit more. And Saquon is still getting around 20 opportunities a game. I could almost imagine a situation where the Eagles, because of the schedule that they have now, they're on the road for a chunk of the upcoming schedule, but Chargers, Raiders, Commanders, Bills. The Raiders, Commanders, and Bills are vulnerable in run defense. And if it's a situation where it's let's say the Eagles go on the road, they play the Chargers in LA, where the Chargers have literally the league's worst home field advantage, and the Eagles put up 30 points on them. And then against the Raiders, they just absolutely dog walk them. And it's wait a minute, the Eagles offense is back. That's not likely, but I can imagine that way easier than I can imagine JJ McCarthy suddenly becoming good at football.
Oh, I know. I just feel like we're just piling on the poor kid. Making meme history, by the way, on Twitter. JJ McCarthy is, with that picture of him looking all tough.
Yeah.
If anyone's having he's like the new crying Jordan. Is that he is? he's become the Michael Jordan in some sense
Yeah.
of
All right.
something.
So anyway, producer Matt Lamarck is messaging me. He's like, "You are way too bullish on Saquon." LOL. I probably am, and really the answer is Jefferson, Barkley. I want neither guy really, but if I had to put some, you would put some money more on Jefferson. I might put a little bit more on Barkley. I doubt either one becomes an end game player.
Yeah.
Someone who is definitely an end game player, the second most chopped player from this past week, Jackson Smith and Jigba. 29%, no notes. Just spend everything, maybe even some of your reserve. Like he's one of the players to where I think it's actually justifiable to dip into the reserve a little bit. And it's like, all right, you know what? I give myself $10 as my reserve instead of 20, whatever it is. Like you deploy the full war chest to
Yeah.
go get him. That's my thought on JSN.
Yeah, no doubt. Full agreement. The nightmare came true last week against the Vikings where will the Vikings keep this game competitive and they did not. And that is why we were talking about JSN right now, but the the Seahawks want to win out. They got some tough games, but that's okay. JSN is essentially matchup. There's not going to be a game like this. And JSN, I'm actually shocked he hasn't been on this list more just because this is like the third or fourth game Seattle has had where, let's see, Darnold, he definitely threw the ball less than 30 times, and he threw it 26 times. Darnold's had multiple games where he threw the ball 12 times against the Cardinals one game. So, but that should not be the case moving forward. So yeah, JSN basically like all in to just within reason. But yeah, the highest grade of smash available.
Yeah, and for those who weren't watching on YouTube, producer Matt Lamarca posted a graphic, a photo of Max Brosmer with the words "the only man who can stop Jackson Smith and Jigba," which is very accurate. All right, the number one chopped player from this past week, Amon-Ra St. Brown, 32% chopped. You know, situational circumstances, the injury. So it's just like nothing to where he just had a bad performance. It was just like, some things the fantasy gods, the football gods take into their own hands. The question now is, what do we do? Right? He's available in almost a third of guillotine leagues. And so the question is, with the ankle injury, is he going to play this week? Is he going to be shut down for the season, right? Like it's hard to know how much to commit to someone who will give nothing in the short term, because at this point, basically all that's left is the short term. And if the Lions lose over the next couple of weeks, so the Lions playing on Thursday Night Football this week, so that short turnaround or short rest, just in terms of kind of making decisions as a fantasy manager, that can also come into play here. But if Lions lose to the Cowboys, if they lose again over the next couple of weeks, they're pretty much out of the playoffs. And then maybe the team just shuts St. Brown down for the year. It's hard to know how to approach a guy who was injured with only 4 weeks left in the season. Brian, how are you approaching St. Brown?
Yeah, I feel so bad for those who, especially in guillotine leagues, had Sun God, right as most are sitting down, the game's just started, you're all excited, you're about to eat, and then Sun God's done for the day. Yeah, it's not looking good for Thursday. As of this taping on Tuesday, Amon-Ra was not at practice. It's all but fixing up to be a game time decision, and you would have to think uh, it's somewhat significant ankle injury. Even if he plays, he's not going to be at 100%. So he's not a pass, but he's a stash right now. You can't trust him as a smash, that's for sure. And if he misses this week in a crucial game, as you were saying, every game is essentially a playoff game for Detroit moving forward. That does not bode well moving forward. Probably going to miss the following, and it's not a great matchup next week at LA. The Rams, not the Chargers. So, yeah, this is a tough one. I mean, I want him on roster to see what happens, and if maybe he does practice or Thursday's full go, then you get him on the cheap. So I'll throw a slip through the cracks bid on him, basically, which is all he's worth with all the question marks. I would say like $20, $25 max, but very good chance we're talking about him next week on the show.
All right. Yeah, I feel similarly as, the guy who has very little fab. I'm probably spending relatively little fab on him because I don't feel like I can afford it for a guy who doesn't have a great chance of playing this week. I mean, at the same time, though, he's Amon-Ra St. Brown, and maybe he misses only 1 week. And if he comes back and he's looking healthy, then I got an in-game player. So I do view him as a stash. And it's maybe like I'm spending more than $1 in the hope that I get him. But the thing is, because of the injury, he feels like a guy who might slip through the cracks. So
He's the
yeah,
perfect candidate. Even if you have $0, put a $0 bid. You could get him this week with only 5 teams left. Because there's no one's rushing to grab him right now. Everyone's kind of like, eh. But worth a slip. He's the prime slip through the crack candidate.
Yeah, I mean, there are going to be some leagues where JSN is available and Amon-Ra St. Brown is also available, and everyone's going to be looking at JSN, and they might not really even think about putting a bid on St. Brown. So, I think certainly a $0 bid, but maybe $2 or $3 if you're kind of already in your reserve in terms of what you're deploying. I think you want to take the strategic shot on him, but you certainly don't want to overspend.
Yeah, he's a lotto ticket right now, so only kind of worth that money. Tom Kennedy, $0. Go grab him. $0.
All right.
We'll see.
Okay, that was the what you bid in segment, brought to you by our friends at Pristine Auction, where they have something for every fan. If you are already registered with Pristine, use the code FANTASYLIFE to receive $20 off at checkout. If you are a first-time user, register using the code FL20 to get $20 in credits added to your account. All right. This was a lot of fun talking about these guys. Hopefully everyone is able to go get Jahmyr Gibbs, go get Saquon Barkley. I'm joking about Saquon, but Gibbs and JSN seem like the two big guys that you want to deploy with. And then I would say St. Brown and Waddle seem like the tier after that, where you're just kind of situationally thinking about how to approach them. And Jefferson and Barkley are those guys of like, you know what, we'll just see, maybe put a couple of dollars on them.
Right on. I agree.
All right.
Great show, Matt. That was fun.
Yeah.
And thank you to the Redditors out there. Love you for real.
Yes. Thank you to everyone. Yeah. Everyone who listens, who comments, interacts with the show, etc. Also, I did not mention producer Matt LaMarca on last show. I did not wish him Thanksgiving when I wished everyone else Thanksgiving. So I'm specifically saying thank you to Matt LaMarca, a fantastic producer. Thank you. Yes. Thank you, LaMarca. Thank you, listeners. Thank you, Brian, for a fantastic show. And we will see all of you next episode.